Karma got me. My hubby recognized my car at the McDonald's parking lot and caught me red-handed. I hate her. I really hate her. The very mention of her name makes my blood boil. Why does she even exist? I know she might be doing some good in the world, but come on. Not every good is good. At least not to me. By now, you must be wondering who I am talking about and what they person must have done to me. Don't worry. I will tell you who I am talking about, but sadly, it's not a person. I'm talking about Karma. Sweet and lovely. Barf. Karma. I didn't think I would ever have a reason to hate Karma because I've always been a fan of her work. But now that I'm on the receiving end, I can boldly tell you that I hate her. Hi there, beautiful creatures of this earth. My name is Darla. I am 29 years of age, and I am the soon-to-be divorced wife of Steve Green. I know that it's a weird introduction, but that's the truth. You see, I had a happy home and marriage, but that all came crashing down when Karma decided to come knocking on my door on that faithful night. I still wonder who let her in or why she didn't just let this one slide. Right now, I'm still trying to figure out my next move because it feels like everything is against me, and I really don't want things to get much worse. Fellas, pull up a chair, get your bowl of popcorn and soda because it's going one heck of a story. Want to know something funny? It's not even over yet. Don't worry, you'll understand what I mean soon. I was born in Missouri and I pretty much lived my entire childhood and teenage years there. I have many siblings, and the reason for this was because my parents got married earlier and decided that wearing protection was for the weak. Well, 20 years and 10 kids later, they still think so, but luckily they've decided to just take it down a notch. I have 6 brothers, 3 sisters, and a golden retriever. Growing up was fun, and we always got into a lot of trouble. You see, my siblings and I were born 2 years apart from each other till my parents finally decided that 10 was enough. Seeing that the age gap between us wasn't too much, we always did everything together, and it was always something bad. It was one thing if it was just the boys who were getting yelled at by our parents and the neighbors, but the girls also joined I getting up to no good. We all decided to change a bit the moment we were in college. Well, they did. I don't remember making such a decision. We were all able to get into good colleges to study our dream courses, and our parents were proud. 2 of my brothers and I got into college to study history, computer science, and real estate respectively. Now, despite being in the same school, I hardly saw my brothers. We only met each other on the road when we had something important that couldn't be discussed over the phone. It wasn't because we didn't want people to know that we were related, but because we each had individual goals, and if we always spent time together, those goals would never be accomplished. I took my studies moderately serious and always maintained a good result, but that did not stop me from being an obnoxious queen bee. Now I was stunning and I knew it. I was tall, though not too tall. Chocolate skin, full afro hair, small lips, eyes that could melt better. Allow me to get my point before you roll your eyes, thank you. I had curves at the right places, and trust me, I was a catch. Guys always approach me and try to buy me stuff. And who am I to receive right? Now, despite all the guys that were always around me, I had eyes for one guy and one guy only, Marcus Brittle. He was in my department, and boy, was he hot. He was the one boy who didn't seem to fall under my spell because he hardly drooled when he saw me no matter what I wear or say. Now let me paint a picture of Marcus so you'll know why I was hell-bent on getting him. Marcus was basketball height. Yeah, that tall. He's half Korean and half black. He's buff. Like when I say buff, I mean buff. He is always neat and smells like lavender. His voice, his voice. Just thinking about it gets me weak to my knees. Ladies, you know how a guy sounds immediately he wakes up. That voice that literally kills whatever self-respect we have left. Yes, that voice, and then his face. He got that Felix from Stray Kids look, but then imagine it on a chocolate-skinned runway model. The crazy thing is, I am not exaggerating. That's how good he looks, so you can imagine my anger and devastation when this K-pop model/Greek god does not make advances at me. I mean, we occasionally exchange pleasantries and chat in class, but that boy made my legs wobble under me, and I wanted him all to myself. Was that too harsh or selfish? Meh, even if it's wrong, I didn't care. One day I was with my best friend Crystal, and I was talking to her about Marcus, and I mentioned how I wanted him. Crystal dropped her phone calmly on the table before turning to look at me. "Which Marcus are you talking about?" she asked me with an amused face. "Marcus Brittle," I responded. And then next thing she did confused me a bit. "You do know that Jade is dating him?" She completed while looking at me, obviously waiting for an answer. "Okay, and?" I answered, with an angry look on my face. She opened her as though she was about to speak, but then closed it and got back to her phone. "I hope you know what you are doing," she said. "I do," I responded and brought my phone. Ladies and gentlemen, I was wrong. The next day, I happened to run into Marcus at the library. He was going out as I was going in. When we met, we stopped to have our normal small talk, but this time I asked for his number. He seemed surprised. I still don't know if I should be flattered or offended. I mean, most guys will pay to get my number back then, so I didn't know what to make of his reaction. That I actually asked for it, but nonetheless he gave it to me and we went out separate ways. I texted him that night and we spent close to 3 hours texting back and forth before he said he had to sleep because he had an appointment early the next day. We said our goodnights, but I couldn't sleep. My mind was racing and I swear my heart started beating Mick more than it normally does. Was I in love? I mean, it wasn't impossible, and given the fact that I had been obsessing over this very personal just made it all the more possible. I had classes the next day, but due to the fact that I was up all night, I couldn't go, but I got my friend to get me notes. I mean, sure, I was a queen bee, but I was not going to let my grades suffer. I was going to emerge as the best graduating student. That has always been my dream. Well, the dream started last night after Marcus told me that he loved girls like that. After that day, Marcus and I became inseparable to the point that people who didn't know him well enough thought we were dating. Now I knew he had a girl, but I didn't mind because I knew that no matter what, she would always come first. But that wasn't going to last. You see, I wanted Marcus for myself because why the heck not? Now Jade had stopped me on various occasions and asked me reduce how much time I spent with Marcus, or better yet, leave him alone completely, but that was never going to happen. I continued my friendship with Marcus, but I made sure people believed we were together, and Marcus was such a sweet and gullible soul that he never really saw any problem with how close I was getting. I know. I should have respected the words of my fellow female, but trust me, if only you could see Marcus and listen to him talk and laugh, you would understand why all Jade's threats and compliance fell on deaf ears. The guy was just perfect, and I wasn't about to let go without a fight. I actually thought of letting Jade share Marcus with me, but then she did something that, although may not seem like much to someone else, meant a whole lot to me. Now Marcus and I were sitting and talking inside a cafe when Jade walked in and went to order a cup of iced coffee. After she got her drink, she walked to our table and sat close to Marcus before planting a kiss on his lips. Marcus smiled at his girlfriend before asking her what she was doing there. "Is it a crime if I decide to visit my boyfriend while he's out with his friend?" she asked while looking at me. The way she looked at me and said the word friend, I knew she was not happy that I was there. My sixth sense kept telling me to get up and leave, but I stubbornly refused to budge. "So Jade, did you want anything, or are you spying on Marcus?" I said, never breaking eye contact with her. She gave a fake smile while Marcus giggled beside her, completely clueless of what was going on between the two ladies who sat with him. "Oh no. No, I only came to get a drink and I saw Marcus here, so I decided to steal some seconds from him before leaving," she said, still having that fake smile on her face. "Babe, that's so sweet. You know you can steal as much time as you want from me," Marcus said, pulling Jade close to him before planting a kiss on her head. Jade smiled, then looked down at her watch before getting up. "Babe, I have to go. I have an appointment with my lecturer," she said before placing a kiss on his lips. She then came close to me and leaned into my ear. "This is the last time I will ask you. Leave Marcus alone or you'll be sorry," she slowly said before intentionally spilling her drink all over me. I immediately stood up and slapped her, big mistake. But before I could apologize, she slapped me back, and by this time Marcus was standing in between us, although he had his back to me, and he did something neither of us expected. "Jade, why did you do that?" he nearly yelled at her. Jade stood speechless for some seconds before finally speaking. "Babe, she slapped me. Didn't see that." Jade said yes, but she only did that because you spilled your drink all over her. It was simply a reflex action, he told her before turning to me. "I'm so sorry about your dress. Come, let's get you changed," he said before leading me out to his car. Did I mention that he was rich? As we left, I turned back to see a stunned and speechless Jade still standing there, trying to process what had just happened. When she finally looked in my direction, I stuck my tongue out before giving her smirk. Marcus drove me to my dorm and made sure I got to my room before he left. Such a gentleman. He told me that he was going to see Jade because he needed to find out why she did what she did. We said our goodbyes and he left. That night, when I tried texting him, he didn't respond to my text. I thought maybe Jade had told him things about me and that he had decided to cut off all ties we had. I decided to rest and try again in the morning. At around 3 a.m., I heard someone knocking on my door. Wondering who could be at my door by such an unholy hour, I asked who it was, but I got no response. The person just knocked some more, so I slowly got up and walked to the door. "If you don't tell me who you are, I'll call the police," I said with a shaky voice, hoping that I sounded convincing enough. It's Marcus, the person slurred, but I knew who had that voice, and my fear quickly turned to anger. I was ready to cuss him out the moment I opened the door, but I didn't. The moment I opened the door, about to ask Marcus if he had lost his mind, he kissed me. Marcus kissed me. It wasn't one of those quick peck on the cheeks or on the lips. It was a full French kiss. I was confused at first because I couldn't smell alcohol on his breath, so I know he wasn't drunk. Plus, he wasn't that type of person who does recreational drugs. 5 seconds into the kiss, I started to kiss back and started moving inside. He closed the door, but his lips never left mine. We slowly made our way to the bed, trying so hard not to make any sound. Once we got to the bed, I sat down and watched him while I slowly got comfortable. The room was dark, but I felt his eyes on me and they felt hungry. After getting comfortable, I heard him mutter a cuss word under his breath before lunging at me again. That night is forever sealed in my mind. It's a miracle that the neighbors didn't hear me because, ladies, you know that theory that goes, if he's big upstairs, that means that he's compensating for something, right? Well, Marcus wasn't compensating for anything. He was big up and down, and boy did he know what buttons to fix. Long story short, I had an unforgettable night, but I didn't expect what happened the next day. You see, I had gotten up before Marcus. I could barely walk properly, but I didn't care, and gone to use the restroom. While I was still doing my business, I heard my room door open and close. I didn't pay any mind to it, so I just stayed in the restroom till I was done. When I got out, Marcus was gone. I didn't really expect him to stay, but I wanted to talk to him, and I tried calling him. I realized that he had left his phone under the bed. I decided to give it to him whenever I saw him later that day. The day over slowly and honestly. I didn't pay attention to anything I was being taught that day. The only thing that kept replying in my head was Marcus and the night that we shared. Funny enough, I didn't see Marcus till I had to go back to my dorm at the end of the day. When I got there, I saw Marcus leaning on my door, probably waiting for me. "Hey," I said when I got close to him. He looked at me and gave me a weak smile before saying, "We need to talk." I opened the door and let him in before handing him his phone. He thanked me and cleared his throat before he started speaking. "Darla, first of all, I want to apologize about last night. Jade and I had a fight and I needed somewhere to go cool off. Your place was the first that came to my mind, but when you opened up and I saw you in that nightgown, I just couldn't control myself. It was worse when you were in your birthday suit. Darla, I am really sorry. I shouldn't have done what I did and I apologize for that," he said while avoiding eye contact. Now I know that he was apologizing and all, but then I needed him so badly that I got up, excused myself, and went into the washroom. I came back wearing nothing but a towel. I knew exactly what I was doing and I didn't care. He sat there speechless and watched as I walked closer till I was literally in front of him. Then I let the towel fall to my feet. "Fudge," he said in a low, raspy voice while he looked at me. Before I couldn't say anything, he lifted me like I weighed nothing and carried me to the restroom. While there, he turned on the shower and got in with me. After we were done, he lifted me again and carried me to the bed before dropping me. "Why can't I stop?" he said while his eyes roamed every part of my body. He made his way up to the bed and then the pleasure began. Now I could see his face clearly as well as every part of his body. Just as his was getting into it, the door opened and guess what? Jade walked in. Yes, Jade, as in Marcus's girlfriend, Jade walked in. She was on her phone when she did, but the moment she lifted her head and saw us, she dropped her phone before running out and slamming the door behind her. That earned me another strike. Now I actually thought Marcus would run after her and try to ask for her forgiveness, but he didn't. He just looked back at me for some time and then continued. We spent the entire night together but never slept for more than 5 minutes. Turns out Marcus had gotten into an argument with Jade the night he came to my dorm, and when he left the next day, he went to make peace with her but also to break up with her. I wasn't the reason for the breakup though, and I guess she came by to talk or whatever, but instead met me in a complicated position with him. When I asked Marcus why he broke with her, he simply said that he was going to England to study for his master's, and he knew for a fact that he was not cut off for the whole long-distance relationship, so he had to end it. Marcus and I became friends with benefits till the day we graduated, but Jade didn't graduate with us. Apparently, she changed to a different state and started schooling there. After graduation, I moved to New York City to kickstart my career as a designer. I only studied real estate to please my parents. My true passion was art, while Marcus traveled to London for his master's. It was at New York that I met my soon-to-be ex-husband and also where I got a visit from Karam. I met Steve in a taxi. I am very serious, but I didn't know that he was going to end up being my husband. In New York, the slogan was "Eat or be eaten." To be fair, I was the one who came up with the ridiculous slogan, but honestly, New York was not for the weak. Steve and I had both stopped a taxi, but the problem was that we were not together then, and we both seemed to be running late for an appointment. After minutes of bickering, he finally let me have the taxi while he searched for another one. That particular morning was the day I was being interviewed for my current job, and luckily I got the job. I went out at night with my friends to celebrate, and I ran into Steve at the club. We immediately recognized each other and got to talking. Turns out he was also running to meet up with an appointment, but he didn't get there on time and therefore lost the job. I felt bad because he was partially my fault that he lost the job, so I told my friend to leave without me while I stayed with him to have a drink. Or 10. Let's say that the repeat of what happened between Marcus and I happened, but this time, he didn't sneak off early the next day. And sure, he wasn't a Greek god like Marcus. He still carried a good package and really knew how to use it. That night was the night I realized that I wanted to spend the rest of my life with him. I know it sounds weird, but to be fair, he did say he was in love with me, although I know that he wasn't in control of what he was saying. Our relationship kicked off from there, and then, 3 years later, we were married with a daughter. I was happy. I really was happy, and honestly, I forgot all about Marcus and Jade for a couple of years. I loved being married to Steve and also loved being a mother to my sweet princess. But one day I heard a knock on my door, and when I went to open it, I unintentionally invited Karma into my house, but she didn't come alone. Oh no. Right at my door stood the best thing that happened to me and the worst surprise that hit my marriage. It was Marcus. I kid you not when I said I almost fell. I couldn't believe my eyes. Marcus the Greek god was standing at my doorstep, and girl, he was looking yummy. Luckily, no one was at home when he came over, because if anyone had seen what I did next, I was going to be in serious trouble. Before my mind could fully come up with a plan, my body acted. I pulled Marcus in and kissed him. Yup, Karma was definitely smiling as she watched me mess up. I wish all I did was kiss him, but sadly it wasn't. Marcus and I relived that night he came to my dorm. Every single thing was just as I remembered it, and it was still amazing. My husband and daughter were at a father-daughter picnic and wouldn't be back till later in the evening, so I was safe, or so I thought. After the few minutes of bliss I experienced with Marcus, I was now fully dressed and cleaning up while Marcus watched me. "I've missed you, Darla," he said while looking at me. I turned and smiled back before saying that I missed him too. We talked for a while, and I found out that Marcus was still single, although it was totally his choice. He said he didn't find the lady who made him feel the way I did. Now this was Karma talking, but you'll find out why I said so later. I told him that I missed him, but that I was already married with a child, and he said that he didn't mind. He said that all he wanted was to be able to feel me and my warmth. I told him I would think about it. Big mistake. Huge. He was there till Steve came home with Vanessa, our daughter, and I introduced Marcus as an old schoolmate of mine who dropped by. That night I thought about what Marcus said, and well, like I said, I had already let Karma in without even knowing it, and so she was getting ready to strike, but little did I know that she was going to strike me sooner than I thought. The next day I met Marcus at his place to tell him that I was going to take him up on his offer. Let me stop right there for all those calling me names. If you were in my situation, you would have probably done much worse. Keyword is probably. I didn't want to cheat on Steve, but this was Marcus, for crying out loud. This man had my button, and he knew the effect he had on me. When I got to his place, we didn't even talk. Now you see why I said he knew which buttons to press. And I ended up staying there till it was nightfall before I went home. I already knew what to tell Steve in case he asked, and Steve isn't the type of guy to yell at you or accuse you of anything, so I had nothing to worry about. When I got home, Vanessa had already gone to bed while Steve sat in the living room waiting for me. "Hey babe," I said as I saw him watching the TV. He hadn't seen me originally, so he had to snap his head in my direction. He snapped it so hard I swore that would have come off if it was in the movies. "Hey you, how are you?" he said calmly while standing up and opening his arms, gesturing me to hug him. I walked into his warm embrace, and they felt good. Not as good as Marcus though, but still. Steve didn't even ask me why I was home late. He just said I looked exhausted and needed to rest. Of course I would look exhausted. I had been with Marcus, and that was enough to drain me of my strength. I didn't say anything. I just let Steve think what he thought and do whatever he wanted. Besides, I was too tired to object. Now I thought that since it happened for the first time since my marriage to Steve, I wouldn't eventually realize that I loved Steve too much to hurt and cheat on him. But Karam said, "Not today. Satan Oh yeah, I'm pretty sure she calls me Satan when she's clearly the defendant of Hades who was sent out to destroy innocent individuals. Okay, maybe not all are innocent, but you know what I mean. I decided that coming back every day would look suspicious, so I convinced Marcus that we would be seeing on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays since I didn't work on the weekends. He didn't have any problem with my new timetable as long as I stayed with him. Everything was going well, and honestly, I couldn't be happier. Although came back exhausted, too exhausted to do anything with my family, I always used work as an excuse and always made it up to them by taking them to any place they wanted during the weekend. Now, Steve wasn't the type who always wanted to be intimate, so he didn't always ask for it. Instead, he would just make out or cuddle till I passed out. He and Vanessa really liked this idea, and for a while everything was going well. Karma decided that it was time I paid my debt, and I was in no way prepared for what was about to happen. But one thing I'll tell you is that the impact it left was bigger than anything I had ever experienced. Now it was summer break, and Vanessa had traveled to spend her summer with my parents in Missouri, so Steve and I had the whole house to ourselves, but that didn't affect my time with Marcus. You know, any sensible person would say that it was probably a time to take a break, but then I was under an influence, and it was so bad that if I didn't get my dosage at the right time, I would get grumpy and restless. Creepy, I know, but you'll understand it if you ever happen to experience it. Now Marcus had to work on Friday, so I didn't go over, but rather went home and went to my husband. It was an amazing night, but while everything was going on, all I could think about was Marcus. I am horrible. I know. The next day was Saturday, and Steve decided that we should stay in and just enjoy each other's company, to which I agreed. Around 8 p.m., I got a call from Marcus saying that he really needed to see me and that it was important. I didn't even object. I just asked him where he was, and he said McDonald's, so I told him that I would be there in 10 minutes. I went back to the living room and told Steve that I had to rush out real quick, but that I would be back soon, and he said it was not a problem. It was dark outside when I got to the McDonald's place, and I saw Marcus standing in the parking lot. I pulled up and made sure to park where people hardly passed through because I had this feeling that we would get adventurous. And I was right. When I pulled up, Marcus told me that he always wanted to do it in the car at a McDonald's parking lot at night, and I didn't even know what to say or even how to react. I should have known that it was karma reeling me in, and I fell for it. He got in and we did it in the back of the car. Or rather, I was so into it that I forgot I was out in public despite the fact that it was late at night. I was about to climax when someone tapped on the window. It was Steve. Fudge. He just looked at me before going to his car, getting in and driving off into the night. Shit. I cussed while getting out of the car and adjusting my dress. Marcus seemed just as startled as I was, so he didn't say anything or try to stop me. I drove home in a panic, and just as I suspected, he was not at home. I tried calling him, but no response. It's been 3 days, but he hasn't been home. I honestly don't know what to do. But I can tell you one thing. Karma is a female dog. Guys, I'll update you if anything happens. I hope he comes back. Hey guys, it's me, Darla, and I promise to update you guys if anything happens. Well, here I am with the update. So Steve came back after being away from home for 5 days and walked straight into the bathroom without even giving as much as a glance. I was really nervous because I didn't know what he was up to or where he had been, but I was going to beg him for forgiveness regardless. When he finally came out of the restroom, I literally fell to my knees in front of him. Steve, I know that you are upset and you have every right to be. I messed up big time and no amount of apologies would fix it, but I'm willing to do anything to show you how sorry I am. Please forgive me, I said as my eyes slowly got filled with tears. He stood there for a while and looked at me, not saying a word, before he moved past me and went to sit down on the bed. How long? I heard him mutter as I turned around to ask him what he said. How long has this been going on? He repeated, his voice filled with hate and disgust. Some weeks, I lied, and he didn't say anything. After what felt like hours, he asked me to come and take a seat close to him, which I did slowly. We ended up talking about everything, and I know this sounds weird, but he forgave me. Marcus and I stayed in touch, but he said he cared about me too much to let my marriage crash because of his own selfish desires. We stopped our private escapades and just became close friends. Luckily, Steve didn't see his face that night, so it was safe for him to come around the house and spend time with Steve and Vanessa. One day, Marcus came over and announced that he was getting married soon. I was shocked and a bit sad, but happy that he was going to be settling down soon. Steve was really happy for him, and they went out to celebrate. To be honest, I was surprised at how Steve and Marcus bonded over a short period of time. It had been a year since that incident happened, and Steve has been really supportive and caring. I don't know, maybe he felt bad over everything and thought maybe it was his fault. Steve and I had planned to host an after party for Marcus at our place, so you can imagine how hectic that day was. The wedding went beautifully, and Amy, Marcus's bride, looked stunning. It was finally time for the after party, and everything went perfectly. Steve stood up to give a speech, and honestly, by the time the speech was over, I was in tears. I would like to make a toast to two amazing people in this room, the first being the groom of the day and my very close friend. We met and honestly thought that we would never be more than acquaintances, but I guess fate had other plans. Today is a very special day because you found a very special someone, and I pray that nothing tears you both apart, though I doubt anything will. After he said this, laughter erupted around the room. Next person is my darling wife. Darla, I didn't really like you when we first met because you tried to steal my taxi, but I didn't know that you would soon steal my heart. A series of ahs were heard, and I couldn't help but blush. You brought me joy and peace, and I really appreciate it, but I never thought that you would turn out to be a snake. I nearly choked on my drink when he said this. I looked at him confused, but he just went on. You see, that night I caught you and Marcus at McDonald's. I didn't know what to think because I couldn't believe that you would do such a thing to me. So the next day I sought out Marcus and he told me everything, including your school days, and I really appreciated his honesty. I looked at Marcus, but he looked really unbothered, and so did Amy. When I came home, I expected you to be honest with me, but when I asked you how long it had been going on, you still lied to me, but that's not even an issue for me right now. You just helped me see the truth. Upon saying this, a lady got up from the crowd, walked up to Steve and placed a kiss on his lips. When I looked closely, my blood froze. It was Jade, and she was heavily pregnant. I didn't even stay to hear the rest of the story. I ran out and drove to my parents' car in Missouri. I've been there ever since, and I just got the divorce paper in the mail. I guess karma wasn't quite done with me, and I can't even get mad at any of them. After everything, I was left with nothing but a pregnancy. Now you guys understand why I hate karma. She's the evil spawn of Hades. Bye, I guess.